Simi at CKNW.com. When we come back, why did the Premier wade into the marijuana debate yesterday? We'll talk about that when we return. Over to provincial politics now, and Premier Christy Clark, I don't know why, but waded right into it yesterday. Reporters asked her a couple times about whether or not she'd ever smoked pot, back in the day when she was younger. To me, the answer to that would have been, don't we have other important things to talk about? But no, she went right in and said, yes, as a matter of fact, I have. And then it launched this whole discussion. And, somebody has brought up the point that, does this make it harder for you to talk to your kids about why they shouldn't do drugs if the Premier is admitting that she did? I think it just opens up a whole can of worms that didn't need to be opened up to begin with. But let's talk about this now with Tibor Palatinus, a drug prevention expert at Narconon. And Tibor, thanks for being with us.
You're very welcome, Simi. Nice to be on.
Well, this is quite the topic, given what happened yesterday, I guess. One that you deal with, I take it?
I do frequently. How do your parents talk to kids? How does an adult talk to a kid regarding weed? Because if you've grown up in BC, chances are at least someone has offered it to you. You've been around it. It's a large portion of the population get inundated with weed. I mean, it's one of our largest industries.
And yet we have all this discussion too about legalization, and it's almost like every week another group is coming out saying legalize it. How, as a parent, then do you stop and say you still have to talk to your kids about why there's dangers involved?
Absolutely. The biggest lie in the whole quote-unquote legalization debate is the idea that marijuana legalization equals safe, okay? And marijuana is safe, therefore it should be legalized. That's a complete lie. The actual truth, according to all science experts, no one disagrees with this point that I'm going to say, is that marijuana is a mind-altering drug, psychoactive drug, with hazards and dangers. So, as soon as you leave that out of the equation or the debate, you're lying, and you're essentially that drug promoter or that person who's soliciting or saying, weed's okay, is essentially promoting drug use. They're taking on the role of a drug dealer or promoter, and there's no informed consent going on. So, we have to really step back before anyone takes any drug, even aspirins, and go, okay, well, there's some pluses and there's some minuses here, but let's at least give informed consent. And we're mostly, marijuana is being given to or promoted to young people, most between 12 and 17-year-olds in BC anyway, are experiencing weed. So, there's some, there's some issues that are not being talked about on purpose.
But how do we talk about that when at the same time there is this, so-called adults are having a discussion about legalizing it?
Well, so great question. So the whole legalization debate, the biggest thing I talk about, there are the two most dangerous, most destructive, most damaging drugs in the world are legal: alcohol and cigarettes. Now, why are they so dangerous and damaging? Perhaps, in my opinion, because they're legal and they appear to be safe. But, it doesn't change the stats. I mean, there's more damage done, because of alcohol and cigarettes than any other drugs, period. Now, they're also the most used and the highest consumed drugs in the world, except for coffee. That would be the only exception. Coffee, one could argue, is sort of a food, so it's not really fully in the debate. But I think that the whole legalization idea is the marijuana advocates are trying to put marijuana in a position of incredibly increased use and popularity for completely other reasons. And the other reasons is, of course, the legalization of drugs, period, which is a massive industry. It would actually, drug legalization has to do with finance and money and world power and control more than any other thing, but that's not being talked about. And in my opinion, that's what the legalization debate is really about, boy, is there a huge chunk of money in this area, and who gets to take it.
Right, but by talking about legalizing, you're right, we're giving some people the impression that we're saying legalize it because we feel the drug is what, not very harmless?
Well, that's the biggest pro action that is being done by the legalization movement is they're downplaying any of the risks. There's some facts that some people should be interested in. 140,000 people a year go to U.S. hospitals for marijuana-induced mental health or physical problems. 140,000 people. So to say that it's safe is a lie. The connection between marijuana use and schizophrenia is becoming greater and greater. But the biggest concern that we have with Narconon is that, I'll quote right from our president, Clark Carr, is that he says, "We need sharp solutions thought up by clear minds, not impulsive reactions stimulated by drugs and bodies trying to withdraw from drugs." We're getting into a culture now that is very high-tech, very sophisticated, very analytical, and we can't have, people who are slow thinkers, because right now I think everyone can agree that weed slows down reaction time. It slows down thinking. It makes people dull, stupid, and most importantly, sedated.
But what do we say to our kids then, Tibor? Like, how do we explain to the kids that, this is a political discussion, this is a different discussion?
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't actually go that route with kids. I would actually go right into the fact of, well, here are some of the facts about marijuana. It is a sedative drug. It sedates people. It makes them lethargic and uncaring about the most important things in their life when they're growing up, which is, what are they going to do with their lives? That is the most important thing. They should be deciding in high school. Marijuana and drugs just distract them or dulls that incredible gift they've been given with this sharp mind, and it's going to wreck or ruin that. And the most common thing we see with marijuana smokers when they're younger is dropping grades, so grade scores go down. People are not graduating from high school if they're smoking weed as frequently. The likelihood of them graduating with high grades are far greater and way higher if they do not smoke drugs or weed. So we're seeing, these are some facts. I would be talking to them about those things. We know that.
But then they say, hey, but the premier did it in high school.
Yeah, well, again, we're in British Columbia. Here are two great examples. Okay, both individuals have quit, but they was Brad Pitt smoking weed as a kid. He has a family. He says, you know what, I need to quit because I need my attention on my kids, and I can't have that when I'm smoking weed. Another great example, star, world-class athlete, LeBron James, in high school, smoking weed. He said, you know what, in order for me to be world-class and really to improve my game, I have to quit smoking weed. No problem. I want to be the best. So he quit smoking weed when he goes into, the NBA.
So then I guess if you're a parent, then you would say, yeah, okay, but you know what, they didn't do it for very long.
Yeah, exactly. You can say that, and you can say, to say that a person, once they've tried something, is now condemned for life. That's a complete lie.
Right.
The truth is that what are you doing now? Would it be okay with you, son, daughter, if when you counted on me, I was stoned. Or worse, stoned driving. I mean, the BC stats on stoned driving is scary.
You know what? Let's not even go there. That's a whole other discussion to have. But I want to thank you very much for your time today.
It's been great talking, Simi. Thanks for the call.
That is Tibor Palatinus, a drug prevention expert at Narconon, talking about having those difficult conversations with your kids. The news coming up next.